Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is episode 22 of season 5 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, and it is presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, who have introduced the first release of the CC Invitation Series. That's the 15-year-old sherry cask. Signature CC Classic 12-year-old whiskey finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso sherry cask. Perfect. And time for the holidays. So I'm in Ottawa, Ray. Spent a few days in Seattle for the NHL Board of Governors meetings, which we'll get into in headlines a little bit later. But as you know, because you travel extensively, it's really not that easy to get from Seattle to Ottawa. There's some maneuvering required. So talk about first world issues. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this would annoy you. So, hey, at great expense, book a business class ticket. Gets me to Seattle, back to Toronto. Then I change and I fly from Toronto to Ottawa. Anyway, on the flight back from Seattle to Toronto yesterday, it's a morning flight. How many times have you had the Air Canada omelet? Like 100?
Okay, honestly, 100
or 200?
I actually thought this yesterday because I talked to the flight attendant.
Yeah.
And this year they changed it from the cottage cheese red pepper thing on the side to like some hash brown sort of things.
Yes.
So I was thinking as I was eating the omelet yesterday as well, as I was flying here to Washington, I'm conservatively going to say 250 times I've had that omelet. And it's at the point my brother-in-law, he works, he's in the corporate world and he flies Air Canada frequently. So he'll send pictures of the omelet when he is flying somewhere. And I said, the point being, yep, here's another one. So I bet you our family has eaten that omelet 500 times.
Well, I'm so glad I brought this up, and here's why. So I'm with Gino Retta, and I'm with Chris Johnson, Pierre LeBrun. We're in the Seattle airport, ready to board, and I'm, look, it's not the greatest omelet you've ever had, but we've had it, and I was kind of looking forward to it. So I get on the flight. Again, paid for the business class ticket, didn't upgrade, bought the ticket. So I'm in row 2, Ray, row 2. Elliot Friedman and Chris Johnson are a row behind me. So the flight attendant asked, well, what will you be joining us for breakfast? I said, yes, I'll have the omelet. I'm sorry, sir. The omelet isn't available. I'm like, okay. And my heart sank and I'm stuck with French toast. I'm not 8. I don't want French toast. Right. Anyway, here's where.
Hang on, I got to interrupt you. You don't need to be 8 to enjoy French toast.
I know.
French toast is a winner at breakfast. Are you kidding me?
Okay, here's where I get snarly, though. I'm disappointed, but whatever. It happens. It's not always available. Chris Johnson and Friedman get omelets in the row behind me. So the omelet
because they have higher status.
I bought the ticket. They upgraded. How does that work? So I understand the flight status routine, but if I pay $3,000 for a business class ticket, then the stiff behind me who upgraded using points shouldn't get my omelet.
I don't know how that works, but okay. I'm going to say if the difference is in that price of the ticket, you getting an omelet or French toast, if that's your only if that's giving you the juice of the ticket, I think you're looking at it's the seat.
I thought you
could probably survive.
I thought you'd be sympathetic. You're not even a little bit.
No, you know what I thought this was going to be about when you said you were in the Seattle airport.
Yeah. How
about the mayhem in that airport? Every time they fix it, it gets worse.
Oh boy, it's
else. Like I had a flight in there last week, I guess, when I was flying to go watch my son play soccer, and the flight was at 5:30 a.m. So I get there at 4, and the security lines don't open till 4. I mean, they can't be open all the time, but there had to be 250 people in the security line at 4 a.m. No. And I'm like, those people that are manning and the gates, or like the security stations, the men and women standing there. I'm like, they must look at that line every morning and like, are you kidding me?
No kidding.
And you were jammed. Like, it's a lot of people fly out of there.
Yes, they
but
do.
Every time they rearrange the security thing, it gets worse. It's like, I'm going to say that might be one of the toughest airports to get in and out of.
And anytime you got to jump on a train, then to get to your gate,
you should see me get on those trains. I'm so nervous. Every time I get on, I'm like, am I really going the right way? I don't even really know. And I'm like, oh, sea gates. Fantastic. I can get off here.
Time for headlines, brought to you by Tim Hortons, where their holiday merchandise, Ray, is now available. Give the gift of a 3-pack Tim scented candle, apple fritter, French vanilla cappuccino, maple scents. Plus, you can pick up some hot chocolate ornaments as a fun gift to include with your holiday cards. So all kinds of goodies.
I like the maple. Maple sounds good there.
Really?
Maple sounds good to me.
I mean, it all sounds good to me. Absolutely.
But I think I'm a maple fan. That's mine.
Okay. Well, you have to, when you're home for more than 24 hours, give it a try between now and Christmas. Hey, the Oilers are back in headlines, right? The Edmonton Oilers are back in headlines. 5 straight wins for the Oil. Scored 2 goals in the first 41 seconds in that win last night. Zach Hyman with a hat trick. So look, at some point, we're probably going to stop paying as close attention to the Oilers and just let them breathe a little bit. But now that they've won 5 in a row, are you more convinced that they're settled in and they're headed in the right direction again?
Well, I am, but we're not going to be able to let go of the Oilers, because when they go 15-4-1 and all of a sudden are pushing their way up the Western Conference, how can you not talk about them? Like, as bad as the first 20 games were, the next 20 games are going to be good. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a good team. Yep. The people that, and this is not revisionist history. I mean, we can go back through a few of our pods over the last month or so, and it always felt, as bad as it was, like, this team is not that bad. They're not that bad. I picked them for the Western Conference Final at the start of the season. Mm-hmm. And for a month and a half, it looked like they weren't going to be anything, like they weren't going to get anywhere. Yeah. And the team doesn't get that bad unless it has catastrophic injury. And it didn't. It just was really bad. Mm-hmm. And so we often talk about a hot team regressing to the mean. Well, how about a really good team that, what's the opposite? Progresses to the mean. Yeah. Like, they're going to get to what they're supposed to be. That's why the year is so bloody long. This is going to happen. And the Oilers are fine. And what happened? They changed the coach, right? And sometimes I guess the air needs to change. But it doesn't necessarily mean that was the real issue. Yeah. However, we see lots of times new coach, teams change right away. The goalie started playing like an NHL goalie again. Yeah. He was a Rookie of the Year finalist last year. He didn't forget over the summer how to play the position. The best player in the world got healthy and got on track. Mm-hmm. The power play, which was historically great last year, found their waterline again. Mm-hmm. Darnell Nurse stopped trying to do everybody's job and just do his job. I think that's one of Darnell's biggest problems, is that he tries so hard to be so much that it impacts his game negatively. And when he just settles into being himself, like what he can and can't do, he's a far more impactful player. Ekholm got healthy. Bouchard, I don't know what he was doing for the first month or so, but it looks like he's settled in. Mm-hmm. Like, this team is a good team, and they're going to win a lot of games in the next 20 games. They're you can just see it. Like, the McLeod scored. Remember in the Dregs we talked? Oh, I don't know what podcast. Their bottom 6 had no goals. Yeah. Like, none. Not a few. Yeah. None. McLeod scored in the first minute.
Yeah, that line was
really
good
play
last
from
night.
Fogle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really good. And so oh, gee, wait a minute, the team is starting to play. Maybe Kenny Holland isn't the idiot that everybody made him out to be in Edmonton. And I know I'm biased because he's a friend of mine, but they put a team together that most people felt was going to be in the Western Conference Final.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they were or weren't, that's what most people felt.
Yeah.
And it's the same team. And we're not going to not talk about the Oilers because they're going to be interesting.
Yeah.
They're going to be interesting for the rest of the way because they've got to climb a lot of ground here and they've got to win a lot of games, and I think they will.
All right. Well, former Oiler Tyson Barrie, unhappy, been healthy scratched in Nashville, and that's a first for him in his NHL career. And he comes out swinging publicly, which has annoyed Barry Trotz and management and coaching of the Nashville Predators. So why don't you get a thought on that scenario? And since we just talked about the Oilers, the Broberg situation as well. He clearly wants out, and probably the best thing for him developmentally, right? I mean, this kid was a top pick, and he just has not been given the runway in Edmonton to prove that he can be an NHL defenseman. So start with Broberg or Barrie. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll go alphabetically.
Yeah,
and
okay.
I'll go with Barrie.
Yeah,
which I'll help you out. It's
okay.
A before
I get
R.
it. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I'm just trying to help. Actually, I had to think when I
Yes,
said
you
alphabetically.
did.
I was like clicking. Wait a minute. Oops. So it never does you any good to take that public. It really doesn't help anybody. The same channels can be created in through the manager's phone calls as it can by going out to have it go public. Do you put more pressure on the team? Yes and no, because the team still, they know you want to leave. You're a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
You haven't played that well, whatever it is. They want you to be in a different spot probably too. Yet it does not help.
No.
And all it does is make everybody miserable for the week or 2 weeks or whatever it's going to be till they find a place. Don't forget, Tyson Barrie makes $5 million.
Oof.
Tyson's an awesome kid.
Yeah.
He really is. He's an awesome kid, and where he goes, he'll probably produce. But the same warts on his game are there. He's not a great defender, and he's never really going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to look for a team that can absorb that cap hit to make the deal. And going public doesn't make people have more money.
No.
They just don't. Sometimes that deal is going to take time. I mean, it'll get done. Tyson will move to a new team, and I think he'll help their power play, but it'll take time. As for Broberg, he's in the type of scenario that is the absolute worst for a young defenseman. And that is that you're a high pick with potential to be a really good NHL defenseman with a team that is in a win now window. And so what you need is the room to make mistakes, to have an average game and stay right back in there and play the next night 12 to 15 minutes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Edmonton doesn't have that room. They just don't have that room to make that spot available for him. And so you don't get, everybody wants to play with confidence. How are you going to have confidence when you play 6 minutes, then don't play for 4, play 12 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, out for 3?
Yeah.
Like you don't get anything. You don't get anything from those games that you're playing. And it's a really hard spot. And yet for Edmonton, they don't want to move him because they drafted him high and they see potential in him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you trade him at, I don't know what he makes. I think is he still on his entry level?
Yeah,
It must be.
Yeah, 860 something. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can't trade him for a $4 million player.
No.
And if you're trading a first round potential, you're going to get back a more accomplished player, but the money doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to do? Get back another guy that makes $860,000 that's still trying to develop himself at the NHL level? What's the point of that? It's a tough spot. It really is. And I don't have an easy answer for it.
Well, the Maple Leafs are still in the market and will be until they land a defenseman. And I mean, Broberg isn't the right fit there. They need experience in Edmonton. It doesn't sound like Calgary is overly motivated to move Chris Tanev anytime soon. And why would they? Let the market develop. You know, you're not doing Brad Treliving.
Oh, man, I would. Oh, sorry, Drake.
No.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying you're not doing Treliving a favor, you know?
No, you're not. And the longer Chris Tanev is in the lineup, the more some team is going to need him somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I'm holding on to Tanev if I can, as much as I can.
Yeah.
It's funny. There seems like there's more churn around Chris Tanev than there is Noah Hannafin.
Agreed.
And Hannafin's a hell of a player.
Yeah. Could it be the money factor, though, Ray? Could it be money? Like, he pushed away from a $60 million extension in Calgary, you know? So he has to be confident he's getting that somewhere else if or when he's traded.
Right, but then so you have to look at you're getting either player on a rental.
Yeah.
Because you might not want to, or might not be able to sign Hannafin to that type of deal.
Right.
Well,
right.
First of all, you're not getting that type of deal because it's not going to be an 8-year deal, I guess, unless you trade for him. Then you can sign him to 8 years.
Right. Yeah.
But teams are going to be reluctant to make that commitment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have in Hannafin a younger, more mobile, more offensive defenseman. Even though I don't think Hannafin's got the offense that people thought he might have when he got drafted. He was I think Hannafin was the 4th pick in the draft, his draft year, and Zach Werenski went 8. Werenski's has more offensive game. Hannafin's got size and mobility and is a better defender. But there's way more talk around Chris Tanev than there is around Hannafin. Doesn't mean Hannafin won't go first.
No.
But Craig Conroy's sitting there with 2 really desirable assets. And it's not going to be easy for Toronto just to go out and find a defenseman, although they do have now money
because of
with the Klingberg LTI.
Yeah. Well, and I look at Philadelphia. We've talked about the Flyers a bit too, and undoubtedly Toronto is talking to Philadelphia. I mean, is it Nick Seeler, Sean Walker, maybe both? Ristolainen has term left on his deal, so that's probably not a fit for the Maple Leafs. But Philadelphia is telling teams, and Toronto, I'm sure, has been told this: we'll retain money. You just have to pay for it. You gotta, we're in the market for first round picks in Philadelphia. That's what we're in the market for. So you want 2 of our top D? No problem. You can have them. It's just going to cost you a first round draft pick as part of the deal.
And, and Toronto's not sitting there with a whole bunch of prospects they can trade.
No.
Like if you're a Leaf fan and you're really excited about Fraser Minton, well, so are the Flyers.
Yep.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's no secrets. So the assets you don't want to move are the ones that they want. And that really makes the challenge for the GMs increase, because those prospects that you already have, clearly they're advanced over a draft pick that you don't have yet. And you can't wait forever.
No.
And those players, those A prospects, are going to be every bit as much in the mix as a undrafted first rounder.
All right, let's wrap up headlines with some Board of Governors stuff from Seattle the last couple of days. And most often when the owners and the governors get together, it's more business, right? They're looking at what's going on with the Arizona Coyotes. They're getting their business reports. They're getting their safety reports, all of that stuff. And that was a big part of the agenda this week in Seattle. But there were a couple of things that are noteworthy. One that kind of slipped under the radar, which we rolled out on Tuesday, was the tweaking of the All-Star skills. I don't invest in All-Star Weekend. I appreciate it. It's a spectacle for the fans, right? And to some degree for the sponsors of the National Hockey League. So, okay, make it into an event. Enjoy it. I don't happen to like it, but it's not for me. It's for the fans. They've tweaked the skills competition this year, Ray. And I think you're going to be interested in this. So as a better forward in the NHL, okay, you're going to the All-Star. There's going to be 8 events inside the skills competition. You get to pick which 6 you're going to participate in. It's all points driven, and the player that finishes with the most points is crowned the champion and gets a 7-figure payout for winning the skills competition. So $1 million. It's not a bad deal. It's not a bad deal. Yeah.
Do they have, when you said that, he's the champion, I hope they have a throne that he has to ascend upon.
You are the king.
They drop a crown on his head. Wouldn't that be awesome? You're sitting there and they, doing, you're the king.
Okay, but for $1 million, you're going to try, right? Yeah. Like that's always been the knock of the All-Stars that nobody really. Now the skills competition is different because it's an individual event, but with $1 million on the line, I mean, you're gunning it on the fastest skater. Yeah,
but the player gets the $1 million, or
apparently so.
A team gets $1 million.
No, the individual who wins the skills competition. And I was corrected. I said, so we're talking.
Here would be my question. You go. Sorry, we got a delay here. Go ahead.
I said I had to correct myself because when I was poking around on it, I said, a good amount of money, and my source says, yeah, a lot of money, and I'm like a couple 100,000, and he said, no, 7 figures. So it's worth trying for.
Okay, but just think of how strategic you're going to be. So what could happen? You could get to the fastest skater, and McDavid sign. I'm picturing an entry sheet like in elementary school where you go and sign your name for your event, and McDavid signs his name for the fastest skater, and no one else signs up for that event. He's out there by himself.
Well, they should make each guy.
It could be fun. Yeah.
It could be. They shouldn't, but you shouldn't be allowed to handpick your 6 events. Maybe you pick 4 of them, but you have to participate in 2 that, okay, maybe you don't have the hardest shot in the league, but you've got to try. You know what because if you're handpicking the 6 you're participating in, maybe it does tip the scale in favor of one guy. So we'll see.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, it's, the one thing I would, not that they've ever asked or would ever ask, but the one thing I would say to the league is you got to remember it's not just for the 17,000 people that are in the building. There's people watching this on TV.
Right.
It's got to move.
Yeah.
Like the setup stuff has got to be minimal. It's got to be able to go from place to place to place more quickly. And the quicker you can do it, the better it'll be. They'll have better pace to it. And it's supposed to be fun, so make it fun.
Our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to us by Canadian Club Whiskey, introducing the first release of the Canadian Club Invitation Series, CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask. All the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. All right, great to be joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by Andrew Raycroft, who is now an analyst with Nesson covering the Boston Bruins. And why don't we start with the Bruins and how well they've played to this point of the season. 24 games in, Razor, and neck with the New York Rangers for top spot in the Eastern Conference. If you look back at this year, maybe even go back to the offseason, with all of the changes and the turnover and the transition to newer, younger players, could you have made the bold prediction that the Bruins would be in the spot that they're in today?
Not like this. No, not like this. I honestly didn't see a drop off of 75 points. I thought they were still going to compete. They have great defense. They had great goaltenders, but what the center position looked like was going to be the big question. And you had Zach and Coyle, and they were great in the playoffs last season. They were the 2 top centers when the Bruins got up 3-1 on the Florida Panthers. So again, why there wouldn't be a drop off to 75 points, but who is going to be the other centers?
Yeah.
And for me, my big thing was who is going to be Thomas Nosek. Thomas Nosek was so good for this Bruins team. He took every penalty kill face off. Was first over the boards a lot last season, not Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand. It was Thomas Nosek, and who was going to be that? That was my big concern, especially as a former goalie. Who's going to play defense for me? And with the rise of Matt Poitras and John Beecher, it's been the game changer for the Bruins. And now you're looking at the next 5-7 years with the four centers that they have right now. And that's really been the game changer, and something that I didn't see coming. And that's turned them now into a 110-point team rather than a team that's fighting for the 8th playoff spot.
Yeah, Razor, all that makes so much sense, yet when I looked at it, you said as a goalie, you wanted to know who was going to kill penalties. I'm thinking about it a little different when I look at the Bruins, and I'm like, how is their power play going to work? Like, who is going to possibly score? How's Marchand and, to a lesser extent, or maybe greater extent, I guess, DeBrusque going to be able to provide offense without centermen that know how to get the puck out to them? And so I thought they'd drop 35 points this year. Like, they had 135 last year. I'm like, I think they're a 100-point team. That's a lot of points. But maybe the defense and the goalies are that good. Is that such a foundation that really is what pushes them? Because they don't look any different, really.
No, they don't. And yeah, it is. It really is what's pushing them. You look at their metrics and you dig into some of their you look at the rush chances that they've given up this season, and it's been the goaltenders that have got them through. And I think you look around the league and you look at the top teams, they all have great D. They all have 2 great goaltenders, or very good goaltenders at worst. I overlooked it too. I've overlooked it the last couple of years, and I've thought about it a lot more the first 20 games, looking at the New York Rangers. If John Quick isn't lights out, then they have 3 more losses, right? It's so imperative to have that second goaltender get you those 10, 15 points a season that the bad team doesn't get. And that's what the Bruins have gotten. I think that consistency on the back end, the consistency in goal, especially early in the season, you gain those 4, 5, 7 extra points that put you ahead of everyone else and take you out of the playoff dogfight.
Well, we're going to get to the goaltending with you because it's all over the map.
It is.
In the National Hockey League this year. I want to ask you one more about the Bruins. Well, for me anyway, is that Jim Montgomery talked about someone who gets 0 ink in that's Brandon Carlo, and how important he's become, as everybody talks about McAvoy. And man, I was at Matt Lorai's NHL debut. I'm like, oh my God, that kid's a player. It's not going to be right away, but that kid's a player. But Brandon Carlo just kind of like, he's in like his 9th year or something, right? And it's like, he just does the same thing all the time. And teams love these big, tall, right-handed guys. Nobody has them. And the Bruins have one right there.
He's so underappreciated, and he is. Obviously, you are taking an interest in him, and I think it's starting to come a little bit. But just add on to that, and of course, it's we're talking about players. It's not always fair, but he's a $4 million guy.
Right,
he's making $4 million. So he's such a cap-friendly person on top of all of that. But he's brought his game to another level this season as well, and rightly so. He should be talked about because he's probably been the most consistent. Even Charlie McAvoy, he missed 4 games with a suspension, so he's there's probably 6 games where he wasn't a factor. Where Carlo's been a factor in almost every game, maybe 1 or 2 where he didn't change the tenor, and I think you saw that especially in Toronto this past weekend. Hockey Night can't. When he plays the Leafs, you really recognize how important he is, how he's able to close space. And even though he's a big guy, it's not like Marner can buzz around him. He's able to take space and use his size. And he's a very, very valuable piece, not just 5-on-5, not just penalty kill, but 5-on-5. And he's shooting the puck a little bit more this season. He's trying to jump into the rush and add a little bit of offense. And if he chips in a little bit there, it's an absolute no-brainer. So he really does deserve a lot of credit on the back end for being as consistent and understanding his game as well as he does.
Okay, maybe I did have one more. How much does Jim Montgomery mean to all of this?
Well, I think it's funny because last year he came in and Patrice was here and Krejci were here, and he was just kind of, I think, almost purposely took a back seat to everybody, especially coming off Bruce Cassidy, who was challenging people in the media consistently. This year, it's a little different. His tenor's a little different. I think he's trying to And of course, with the playoff loss, I think he's trying to focus the guys a little bit more. He's trying to push a little bit more, and so it is a little bit of a different vibe, but. And I think in a good way. I think he's recognized that. And I think that's what makes him a good coach is that he isn't stuck to doing one thing. He's very open, very receptive, and that's what the players appreciate. And they also appreciate his hockey sense. He's changing lines. He's putting guys in certain situations. And now you're really seeing it with the young guys and how he's developing Poitras and Beecher and Lowry for that matter. So no, a lot of credit goes to Jim Montgomery and the rest of the coaching staff.
Andrew Raycroft joining us on the Ray and Dregs podcast. And as Ray alluded to, Andrew, I mean, you touched on Jonathan Quick and the New York Rangers, but there have been some bizarre goaltending scenarios and to some extreme, they still exist. I mean, Stu Skinner, the Edmonton Oilers are definitely back on track now with 5 straight wins. Ottawa, last couple of games, their goaltending has been better, but it's been a question mark all year. New Jersey's goaltending, a big question mark. Is there one team or a few teams where you're looking at that goaltending and going, it just doesn't make sense why they're not playing better?
Well, New Jersey's interesting. And not so much because I think they should be playing better. I just thought if you have that kind of a team, to go with Schmid was a gamble. And right now it's not paying off. Vanacek's very serviceable, but he also probably played a little bit over his skis last season. Going into a new situation, not a lot of expectations, and now you have expectations. And Schmid never really playing a full NHL season. Of course, he had lightning in a bottle for 2 weeks in the playoffs, but how many times have we seen that in the history of the National Hockey League? It's a different animal when you go into a regular season with expectations. And I think we saw that in Buffalo too. I didn't understand the Buffalo situation. Devin Levi is going to be an amazing goaltender and has all the talent in the world, but it's not the same as coming out of college and playing 5 kind of meaningless games. Yeah, they went on a run and they got 1 point, but they were never really threatening the playoffs. And I know they won the last 3 to get close, but it wasn't the same. And to go into this regular season and talk about making playoffs and talk about making a jump with Devin Levi, Comrie, and UPL, that I think we see what happened. Like, I expected that. And I feel like New Jersey is a little bit the same, where you're challenging you're talking about Stanley Cup and you have those two guys. I just feel like you need a bit of a veteran presence, even if it's a backup guy, even if it's a John Quick type guy. Think about how much further ahead New Jersey would be if they had that guy around. So I think those are the Buffalo and New Jersey are the two that maybe aren't surprising, but were surprising decisions going into the season.
I did a game last week in Carolina, and now Freddie Anderson's out for, I think, well, I'm no doctor. He's out for a long time with these blood clots and things. So Antti Ranta's got a history of injury. He can't play a whole lot. Peter Kochetkov is just a young kid. So I go in there, Razor, and Ranta had just given up 8 on 14 shots, and they lose to Tampa. Kochetkov plays against the Islanders. He gives up 5 on 16, and they lose. And then last night in Edmonton, they gave up, 6 on 3 shots. I mean, like, it was like, when you're the goalie, like, everybody's staring at you, right? Like, how? And everyone's telling you, "Oh, just relax, just play your game." Like, is that even possible?
No, it's impossible, because exactly, you have 20 guys. The noise outside of the room is one thing, but when you have the 20 guys looking around, of course, your goaltending.
Like, do you feel it? Like,
a 1,000,000%. And that makes you, just like a goal scorer, it makes you grind your stick. It makes you turn it to dust. It makes you try too hard. That's what happens is you're in the room. And then at practice, when you give up a goal that's in the 3-on-2 drill, that's a little suspect, you feel that the rest of the afternoon as well. Like, everything starts carrying over and everything starts to snowball and build up. And that's why you see guys, it's not a matter of their talent changing. They just get a change of scenery and a different vibe and a different person around them, and things change. And that's the Carolina. See, I love Kochetkov. I really do. I would love to see him just give them the ball, but it's almost gotten to the point now there where they miss the boat maybe.
Yeah.
And that would be terrible for him because, again, you could have let him run last year. He was awesome last season. You could have let him run. And now with a little bit of struggles and Freddie out and who's this? And so that Carolina is another really good example of they ran it back and maybe, a change of scenery for one of those guys or someone else to come into Carolina because it should be an easy place to play, right, guys? Like Carolina – New Jersey's tough, Buffalo's tough, but Carolina should be an easy place to play. And you should be able to pick off a few, 3-on-24 type wins on a consistent basis.
Now, let me ask you about, because I did the game in Vancouver the other night. Vanacek played, and it was like a rebound machine, like one of those rebounders in practice. It just kept hitting him and bouncing into the slot. And so as I'm watching the game, I'm like, I wonder if he's so tense that everything hits him and bounces away. Like, is that a thing too? Because he didn't control anything.
Absolutely. That's the number one sign of someone grinding, where you're hanging on to make one save. You're not thinking about the next one or the next one where Shesterkin, Demko down at the other end, they're playing chess. They're 3 moves ahead. They're 3 saves ahead. They're already planning where the rebound's going to go, where down at the other end, you just don't give this up. Don't give this up. And that's, again, that's a symptom of that grind that guys can get into. And that's where, playing the puck gets difficult and making a rebound, putting the rebound in the right spot gets difficult. So it's definitely a sign if you're watching a game. Stuart Skinner at times kicks him out, right? Like that when he's struggling, it's the second and third opportunity on a shift that ends up getting guys when they are having a trouble.
Andrew, there are managers, general managers out there who are worried longer term about what they see developmentally in goaltending and the fact that they think that maybe that pool is getting more shallow, that the talent group is thinner than it's been in a long, long while. Do you have a sense of that, or is it just how the game has maybe changed that has impacted the goaltending pool?
No, I think it's the game.
Yeah.
I think goaltenders, they're as athletic and as big and as strong and can move as well as anyone. But I sit down on the glass. I was down on the glass for the Bruins and the Rangers a couple Saturdays ago at MSG. And you got Allmark and you got Quick, and they're giving up 12 goals on like 60 shots, and it could have been 25 goals. The skill level and the difficulty of playing that position in this game now is so high. The skill level of the kids at 14 years old, 17 years old, now 27 years old. And then on top of that, the power plays. Everybody's power play clicks at 30% now.
Yeah.
And there's 7 of them every game. So no, I think of course you need to, I think there is something to be said about the mentality of goaltenders, and you don't have a lot of the alpha dog, Patrick Waughs, Marty Brodeurs, Carey Prices,
Right.
Jordan Binningtons. I think there's a lot of that's gone, and that concerns me a little bit. I think you want a goalie that's mean to a point to win Stanley Cups. You go you ask anyone. Marty wasn't Patrick. These guys were kind of prickly, especially come playoff time, and they weren't walking their cats. They weren't on social media. You need so I miss that, and I'm concerned about that. But I think the skill level of goaltenders in general, you're just going to see save percentages go down here for a little while because of the skill level and the power plays that are in the National Hockey League.
So what's a good number these days? It seems like yesterday everybody was 923 and 918, and now it's like there's a bunch of 890 something or others
Yes,
in there.
there are.
It seems like that's kind of closer to the average.
Well, I would say I think it's the timing of it. I think you need 2 goalies. You need 2 guys that the team believes in, because to play 57 games or 63 games with a 930 is just pretty unsustainable, because you're going to get those 8 on 16 games if you play enough games. And you're tired. If you're tired one night in the National Hockey League, now forget it. And you go, even if you're playing San Jose, right? Like if you're tired, San Jose put 6 on New Jersey. Like it can happen and it can get away from you quickly. So I think it's the 2 goalies you need to have to stay fresh. And then I would say come playoff time, you need to be Adin Hill and just have your 9:30 in the right 3 weeks of the season. Don't have it at the start, have it at the end.
Terrific stuff, Andrew. Thanks for doing this. The Bruins have been a great story to this point of the NHL regular season, so maybe we'll check back in on you later in the year.
Anytime. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me. Happy
Thanks,
holidays.
Razor. Appreciate it.
You got it. Good to see you guys.
Occasionally, Ray, we'll talk about goaltending on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. And I mean, okay, the puck goes in the net too many times. You look at goaltending. When teams sag, and a number of them have to this point of the regular season, often goaltending is one of the reasons, along with porous defense, lack of offense, all of that stuff. So having Andrew Raycroft was timely because the one thing you have to admit when it comes to analysts, it seems like the centers and the goaltenders always have that kind of sharp perspective.
Yeah, and it's surprising because the centers are the smart guys, right? Like the goalies, we know they're a little different, but maybe they're opinionated because they just stand back there by themselves anyway.
Yeah.
And they got lots of time to talk to themselves because you can't talk to them on game days or, so maybe they have lots of time to form their opinion. But it's so interesting because they view the game completely differently than everybody else. And Andrew made one point, you give up a lousy goal on a 3-on-2 drill in practice and one thing snowballs into another. And I never even thought of that. Yet, as he said it, I was thinking back to practice of when a goalie is getting ventilated at practice, like somebody used to always yell, like, hey, it's not a coal bin, empty out all the black things behind you. Like guys would be all over the guy, right? And you'd look and there'd be one net that would have like a few pucks in it and the other net was filled.
Yeah.
And this guy must be back there like losing his mind because he can't stop anything. And there's nobody to help him.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have a winger to help him. A bad goal goes in, everybody's looking back at the net. Come on, man, you got to have that. And it's so critically important to your team. Like I think we've seen, you don't need to have the best goalie, but you can't be in the bottom end of the goaltending department. If you are, you just can't compete. And I found it interesting that as well the difference between, he brings up Marty Brodeur and Patrick Waugh and how those guys could be a little prickly on game days, especially around playoffs. And the fact that guys can't play 60 games anymore because of the pace and speed of the game.
Yeah.
And it's almost like starting pitching in baseball. They used to pitch 7, 8, 9 innings.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Now it's 6 innings and they're out.
Yeah.
And so the evolution of the way athletes think and what they can handle physically has changed. And that means in hockey, you need 2 goalies.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have them. So just at the NHL level, that's 64 goalies.
It's a lot.
Most teams want 3.
Yeah.
Now if you got 3, now you're at 96. Oh my gosh, it's not possible. And so there's going to be some teams that get on the musical chairs will get left out here of a legit goaltending tandem.
All right, get through this Thursday. What's your weekend look like? Nice and quiet, or just jam solid as?
Yeah, it is. No, I'm actually I'm in Washington today for Dallas.
Yeah,
fly home tomorrow.
Nice.
And then Monday, I'm flying to Edmonton. I'm sure Ryan is. Rashog's obviously planning on some kind of celebration or something.
Yeah,
because he's big on that.
Yeah, maybe he'll have you on the Got Your Back podcast or something. No,
could be. Have you been asked lately?
I haven't. I used to do it regularly.
Me neither. Never. And so I got the Blackhawks in there on Tuesday. Connor Bedard making his first swing out west. So I'll be in there on Tuesday. So pretty simple weekend. You?
Yeah.
You're in Ottawa today.
I'm in Ottawa today. The Leafs and the Ottawa Senators in a dual regional coverage in both the Ottawa region and the Leafs region. Hence the entire panel is in the nation's capital. But no, beyond that, yeah, it's been a busy week on the road. I'm kind of out of touch. I don't travel nearly as much as I used to. So this has been a little unnerving for me this week. So looking forward to getting back home and doing very little this weekend. So that'll be that.
So you're in the hotel in Ottawa, and a few years ago, I don't know how many years, they put in these new elevators that don't have any buttons inside.
Yeah.
And so I was checking in. I was in a rush, and the person at the desk said, "We've got new elevators. Do you know how to put your floor in?" I'm like, "Yeah. I got it. But I wasn't really listening that they were new.
Yeah.
So I walk around the corner. I get in the elevator. There's no buttons.
Yeah.
You've got to enter your floor outside on the keypad.
Yes.
So I get in. The doors close. The doors open up. I'm still there. So of course, I'm handling this quite well. And I'm like, what's going on? And so the doors close again. They open up a second time. I'm still in the lobby. So I get off. There's nobody there. I go back to the desk. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to work the elevator.
It's an ordeal,
so
man.
She comes out. Oh, but it's so simple, right? You just enter your floor. But I was too much of a rush. I'm like, no, I know how to work the elevator. I'm Mr. Travel Guy. I didn't know how to work the elevator. No idea.
All right, buddy. Well, safe travels home and enjoy some rest this weekend.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Andrew Raycroft, and enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
And thank you to our sponsors who make Ray and Dregs possible. That's our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, and Tim Hortons. And thank you for listening, rating, and sharing the podcast. And, of course, for all of you following us on the Ray and Dregs YouTube channel as well. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.